Going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I'm finally doing it. I'm breaking down and giving you guys a great OG Stasis build. This does not involve Prismatic whatsoever. It does involve the exotic grenade launcher. So, with a few tweaks to what we're going to do for our armor, I'm going to show you how to clear out gobs of enemies with very little effort. There is a gameplay loop that you kind of need to follow, but this class is a lot of fun watching everything around you freeze instantly. So, without further ado, let's get on into it. So, first up, we've got the Shadebinder Warlock subclass. Obviously, this is Stasis only. It is not prismatic. So you're going to get the Winter's Wrath. Now, the roaming supers did get a buff in damage. You can check the release by Bungie on exactly how they are affected. But roaming supers now are more viable than they've been all season long. So keep that in mind when you're picking your super, even if you're not rolling with Stasis like this is. Roaming supers in general did get a buff to utility, so you can kill enemies more frequently with bigger damage numbers, including bosses. For abilities, it doesn't really matter what you use. I prefer the Healing Rift. You can do the Empowering Rift if you want, but you're going to be jumping around a lot. So keep that in mind. Throw your Rift down just to get your Orb of Power, which I'll explain here in a minute. But otherwise, you're not going to be relying on the Healing Rift so much as you're going to be relying on freezing everything around you. Same thing with the movement ability. I use Burst Glide, but you can use whatever. Penumbral Blast is really the only melee that you can pick. It is good in certain niche situations, but we're going to enhance it with this build so that you can get the most out of it. For the grenade, you do need to have the Cold Snap grenade. You look at the base cooldown, it is 2 minutes and 1 second. We have a fix for that. You're going to be dependent on the grenade specifically to get the ball rolling. And once you get the ball rolling, you're going to be able to just wreck the battlefield. For aspects, Ice Flare Bolts is one of my favorite ones. Shattering a frozen target spawns seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. This is extremely fun to watch unfold. So if you've never tried this, I absolutely recommend you try it. And with the way that we're building this class right now, it's going to be integral into how you play going forward. Glacial Harvest. Most Stasis Warlocks, I believe, will incorporate Glacial Harvest into their build. But if for some reason you haven't, freezing targets creates stasis shards around the frozen targets. Higher tier combatants create more shards. While Glacial Harvest is equipped, picking up stasis shards grants stacks of frost armor. So a lot of things going on. Your stasis shards recharge your melee energy. Your frost armor is the equivalent to like a void overshield, which basically just buffs your damage resistance to surrounding enemies. So extremely powerful and integral, especially if you're going to be taking this into a harder endgame activity, or maybe a 50 wave onslaught, or even a master or expert lost sector. For fragments, we can kind of debate on certain fragments in here, but some of the ones that are necessary: Whisper of Fissures, increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This is an either or. It doesn't matter which one you have, and since you're going to be freezing everything, you're going to be taking advantage of this fragment a lot. So it is pretty necessary to keep this one equipped at all times. Next up, defeating frozen targets generates an Orb of Power. One of the things you want to make sure you are doing in any class, but especially in Stasis, since you aren't going to be running around the field with lots of speed, just nuking everything faster than the next person can get to them. When you are killing frozen targets, you want that orb of power to keep your abilities regenerating as fast as possible. Next is going to be Whisper of Conduction. Nearby stasis shards track your position. This is a threefer. You get a bump to resilience, a bump to intellect, and having the shards track to your position means you're going to get your melee back even faster than if you have to go out and try to hunt for them. And if you're shooting at enemies that are far away, that might not even be possible, especially once you get to harder content. You're going to have to navigate through a wave of enemies in front of you, no matter what you're running, to get those shards. So this is one of the ways that you can make sure that you get every shard, that is yours. Now, it does have a cutoff as far as how far out, if you're shooting all the way across a Crucible match and you have this equipped, you're probably not going to get that shard. But with most activities, you're going to be relatively close to all enemies you're shooting at, and this is where it's going to be extremely useful to you. Lastly, I have Whisper of Shards equipped on this. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. This is the one that you can debate me on. And feel free to make sure you leave me some feedback. Let me know what you think. If you don't get the stasis crystals even semi-regularly, this fragment is going to be not one that you're going to be looking at. So there's other options that you can equip that might benefit you a little bit better. One of the better ones, in my opinion, kind of based on how I play, is Whisper of Chains. Defeating targets while you have Frost Armor has a chance to create a stasis shard. It also bumps your recovery plus 10. This is one of the better options that you can sub in there if you don't think you're going to get your stasis crystals to pop. So it's going to be kind of based on what you're able to generate. The crystals, in my opinion, are hit or miss with an OG stasis build. And with the weapon that we are running with, you may not see the crystals as often as, just the overall freezing of enemies in general. So I'm going to actually put this one on. As I'm talking about it, it just makes more sense because I can get my melee back faster with the stasis shard, and I get a bump to my recovery. Another one, and I've had some feedback on this previous to making this video, Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. Having Frost Armor increases the amount of energy gained. I have been shown and told, and I've also researched, the amount of energy that you get back from having Whisper of Torment pretty much negates the negative 10 to discipline that you're going to experience. However, with the rate that you are going to be receiving damage versus dealing damage, your grenade should recharge fast enough anyways based on how you're going to have to play with this build. So if you did want to switch this out, again, there's some debate, in my opinion, on this fourth fragment that you can pick. Whisper of Torment is another one that you can substitute in if you want. You can also put Fractures on if you need Frost Armor, but I think between how you're going to play or how you relatively should play with a build like this, you're probably not going to be hurting for Fractures. And if you really need to, you can get a plus 10 to resilience with Impetus, damaging targets with a stasis melee, reload your stowed weapons. I don't really think that's a good one, that you really need, because you should hopefully be focusing your armor on resilience anyways. So it should already bump up, you should already have close to or at a 100 for your resilience. So you get that 30% damage resistance buff. All the other ones, you can certainly put on Rending because, the exotic grenade launcher is a primary ammo weapon, deals increased damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. That one's going to be popular too. But I think overall, you know, especially when you're doing harder content, defeating targets while you have Frost Armor has a chance to create a Stasis Shard. Anytime you can get your abilities back faster, which again, Stasis does not play as a fast build, I think that's a win-win for everyone. And you get a +10 to recovery. So if you do get out of the gameplay loop and you need to seek some shelter, your health is going to come back faster. And also, while you have the Frost Armor, if you keep killing enemies, you might get that shard that might charge your melee, that might get you that Orb of Power, that might get you that last little bit of grenade energy back to start the loop over again. So I think, Whisper of Chains is probably where most people are going to want to fall on, but, make it your own. These three are pretty necessary. This last one is kind of up to you. I think the recovery is nice. I think the shard that you can generate while you have Frost Armor, which again, with the artifact this season, you get Frost Armor relatively easy. So you're going to constantly be having that ability to possibly proc the extra Stasis Shard on top of everything else that's going to help you generate a Stasis Shard. As far as stat distribution goes, this is probably one of my most well-rounded stat distribution classes that I've had in recent memory. There are others out there that I've created that I've tweaked a little bit since and gotten a little bit more well-rounded, but you want to focus in resilience first. I've got a T10 in resilience, and then discipline has got to be at least a T8. Ideally a T10. I've got it right in the sweet spot at 9. I'm never hurting for a grenade unless I do something so goofy that I get out of my normal gameplay loop. Intellect is high because of how the armor rolled that I generated when I was focusing. But again, because the roaming super's got a damage buff, a utility buff overall with roaming supers, the Shadebinder Warlock subclass is not a bad class to run after the recent, fix by Bungie. And then lastly, recovery. Recovery pairs to your class ability regen as well as your lost health. You're never really going to be hurting for strength because your melee is going to come back sometime in between when you're busy shattering frozen targets, hopefully. And then mobility in a stasis class kind of sounds a little bit redundant, but it's not really necessary. I'm going to start with the weapons first. I typically go armor first, but I'm going to start with the weapons. The exotic grenade launcher. Extremely fun to use. If you don't have the catalyst unlocked yet, I encourage you to grind, get that XP, and get that catalyst going. You get your vestigial alchemy, which helps you get your special ammo or heavy ammo back faster. And I do have a lot of fun with this. It's not as fun as some of the wave frames, but you do a ton of damage with this. And with the artifact perks, you get pretty good reload back on this, and you get pretty good. You see the blast radius is at a 100. I mean, that's pretty darn good. And for a primary ammo weapon, this thing does put out and does cook. As far as the energy weapon, typically, whatever my primary ad clear weapon is, I like to put on a shotgun. Arcane Embrace is a popular one. This guarantees me that if I come up against an anti-barrier champion, that if nobody else, for some reason in the fire team, or if I'm solo, has the ability to pop the bubble on a barrier champ, I can fire 2 rounds, a 2-round burst from this shotgun, regardless of surge. It'll pop that bubble and it'll stun the champ. So this is strictly because I want to be able to tackle all champions. And keep in mind with stasis, when you freeze a target, you're already going to be negotiating with overload, but more so unstoppable, which you're going to see in a lot of onslaught activities. Finally, for my heavy weapon, Got an old fan favorite, the Palmyra B. This is a tale as old as time. You can see I've got 24, basically 2,500 kills with this, and I really only bust this out for champs and bosses. Obviously, you know, if you've been playing long enough, you know that there's a lot of rocket launchers out there, so I've experimented with just about every one of them, which is why, you know, the kills on this thing aren't necessarily as high as some others. But for a stasis-centric build, you put on something like auto-loading holster and explosive light. This thing absolutely nukes whatever it touches. I have a lot of fun with this. Oh, and by the way, if you don't like having to perfectly aim your rocket launcher, it does track. So if you haven't gotten the Palmyra B yet, I encourage you. It is one of the best launchers still in the game, even with all the other ones that have come after it. Moving on, I'm going to save the armor for last. Moving on to the artifact. Now, there is some debate on how you can build this, but I'm just going to kind of run down how I'm feeling when I build this. Numero uno, you want to make sure you have anti-barrier shotgun on. It's your only perk that can give you a barrier-piercing weapon. So, non-negotiable. You want to be able to tackle the barrier champs. You got to have this perk equipped. Secondly, probably comes as no surprise, the grenade launcher overload breach loaded. This combats very well against overload champs. So you do have the overload built in to your build here by using the exotic grenade launcher. So you can take this thing into a lost sector or an activity where there are going to be a lot of overload champs, and you theoretically will have unlimited ammo. Next up, authorized mods. The melee armor charge, energy costs of all armor mods affecting your melee are significantly discounted. This is a very powerful perk. Pretty much every season, Bungie will give us one or two perks where it's just like, all right, this is a nice quality of life change. This is one of those. The rest of the perks, you can kind of debate me, and I hope you do in the comments, of which ones you are running, but these are the ones I have picked. Number one on the list in the second column is rapid impacts. Dealing damage with a grenade launcher increases the reload speed of the grenade launcher. Pretty basic stuff. I want to get the next round out as fast as possible whenever I'm shooting that grenade launcher. Second up is Killing Breeze. Rapid weapon final blows, which you're going to have a lot of them, hopefully. Grants you a bonus to mobility. Weapon final blows with the Dark Ether, Reaper Origin, count as more than one. It's not going to matter if you're running Dark Ether or not, because you're using a grenade launcher as your primary. You're going to be getting those rapid kills, you know, if you stick to kind of the gameplay loop. First up, Stasis. One with Frost. While Frost armor is active, Stasis weapons gain increased reload speed and stability. Stasis swords gain increased guard resistance. So this goes hand in hand with this perk right here. Dealing damage temporarily increases the reload speed. So this is double dipping on reload speed and also adds a little bit of flavor with the bump to stability. Next up, I've got Crystalline Converter. Gathering Stasis Shards, which with this build, you should hopefully generate a lot of them. You gain stacks of Crystalline Converter. Your next powered Stasis melee hit, not kill necessarily, hit creates Stasis crystals equal to the number of stacks you have. So as you build up this Crystalline Converter, when you get your melee back, if you throw that melee out, let's just say at a champ or a boss, so get the wheels turning upstairs, you can throw this at pretty much any enemy, and the hit itself will generate the Stasis crystals equal to the number of the stacks you have. And you can further boost this with a tonic for Stasis weapon final blows. After activating your class ability, spawn a Stasis shard as well. So this is a pretty powerful perk if you want to incorporate this into your build. I don't really think Wind Chill is going to be a good substitute here, simply because you would need precision hits, and you're not going to really be getting that with a grenade launcher. So that's going to be one that, if you're running a Stasis primary that isn't a grenade launcher, this one would probably be a little bit better than Crystalline Converter, but because we're running the grenade launcher, which is the focus of the season, the wind chill is not going to be necessary. Again, in my opinion, you can play how you want. It doesn't matter to me. I just want you to be able to have as much fun as possible. Next up, Hail the Storm. Shattering that stasis crystal from the Crystalline Converter releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. You can further boost this to shattering frozen targets, and stasis crystals deals increased damage. So this is another one where you're going to be getting those crystals, and once you shatter them, I mean, it's going to be more stacks on stacks of ice and freezing tracking towards the enemies around you. Next up, we got the Concussive Reload. Using a grenade launcher to damage a boss, damage a champion, or break a combatant's shield weakens them. This is a twofer here because you're already getting the overload bump by having the breach load grenade launcher equipped. Now, on top of that, you're also going to get a weakening debuff. So for those champs that you might come around, beef your yellow bars, or if you're up, at the higher ends of Contest of Elders or, a 50-wave Onslaught, that's going to be huge. That means you're going to weaken them, which means you're automatically going to be able to deal extra damage to those bosses, champs, or any combatant that's got a shield. And then if you do choose to activate the tonic, when you deal that damage, it's going to automatically reload all of your stowed weapons. Last up for this column, Curative Orbs. If you've seen some of my other videos since Act 2 came out, this is a super popular perk that I have activated in pretty much all my builds. You get a free overpower just for breaking a bad guy's shield. So lots of these guys that you're going to come around are going to have that shield. This is just one more way to get the juices flowing, to get, or I guess I should say, get the snow flowing, get the ice flowing, or to solidify the ice in your veins, get that grenade or melee or class ability energy back faster. Brain Freeze. Now this is an extremely fun perk to mess around with. Frozen combatants become surrounded by chilling fog, which slows combatants that aren't already. So if you throw this, if you freeze a bad guy, you throw this perk into the mix. You freeze a bad guy. Any bad guy that's relatively around where that bad guy is at, they also eventually will slow or freeze if in that soul cloud long enough. So stacking on top of all the other perks that you already have, on top of your class perks and fragments and aspects, this is a nice quality of life add-on. I hope that Bungie can somehow add this into future gameplay, either through like a fragment or maybe an add-on to an aspect inside either Prismatic or possibly, just the Stasis subclass in general. But the Brain Freeze, especially for this season, I know it's a Stasis heavy season for some people, even me, Brain Freeze is very fun to play around with. Last but not least, Served Cold. Picking up a stasis shard grants you class ability energy. So stasis shards give you melee energy to begin with. Now on top of that, any stasis shard that you get back is going to grant you class ability energy as well. So you're double dipping with what the shards can give you. And that makes stasis arguably a powerhouse of a class. It is not the best super, but with the buff to roaming supers and all these artifact perks, it is arguably one to be reckoned with. And like I said, the way that this is built, it's probably more fun to run solo than if you're running with, a fire team of all aggressive players, because you're not gonna be as satisfied watching the screen as you would with some other class builds. However, you're gonna see just how utilitarian this build is once we go through the armor. So first on the armor, there's really not a whole lot here that I can recommend more than what I've got on here already. Harmonic siphons, get your weapon, get your orbs of power, and yes, the dual siphons does produce a pretty big orb of power. If you want your super back quicker, you can always throw out ashes to assets, or if you just want to hit it once in a while, get your hands on, when you throw out your melee. If you really need to, you can drop one of these and also add an intellect buff too, Font of Wisdom. Every time you pick up an orb of power, you're going to get that armor charge, which boosts your intellect. But I don't really think it's necessary for you. You're going to be able to get your super back pretty quickly. And even though I've got it equipped, I've got the exotic grenade launcher equipped, I do have the heavy ammo finder. In the heat of battle, I may not be switching between, the special and the heavy ammo brick shots. So it's just nice to be able to have that extra little boost to my heavy ammo regen. The exotic armor of choice is not going to be RIMECOAT. It's going to be the Osmiomancy gloves. Your cold snap grenades have an additional charge that recharges quicker on hits. The Seeker's spawn from cold snap grenades travels faster. So this is a twofer. Every time that you hit an enemy with your cold snap grenade, you're going to get additional grenade recharge back on hits. Also, the Seeker spawn from the cold snap grenades travels farther, which means that enemies don't necessarily have to be completely on top of each other for you to be able to chain hit after hit after hit after hit, which means more opportunities to catch enemies off guard and shatter them and get all your ability energy back faster. I recommend using firepower. Grenade final blows create an orb of power. I also recommend using heavy-handed. Since it's normally a 3 energy, it's discounted to 1 because of the artifact mod. And then harmonic loader, increase the reload speed of stasis weapons. So there's 3 perks now that there's 3 mods now that we're using that's going to increase the reload speed of stasis weapons. 2 of them on the artifact, and then 1 of them here on your arms. As far as the stat boosts, boost your grenade if you don't have it at a T10, but you can use these for whatever you want to make your class as well-rounded as possible. For the chest armor, pretty standard stuff. Nothing too crazy. Get your mods in here however you want, and make sure you have 2 or 3 if you want the third, 1 of each damage resistance, or if you're going into an activity where it's heavy solar or arc or void or whatever, you can put a couple of those mods on for the same element. I prefer harmonic reserves in the final slot so I can get more ammo for my rocket launcher. For the leg armor, harmonic scavenger, again, you can do what you want. You can also put on here a stasis weapon surge if you prefer, since you are, stasis heavy. I prefer in this setup to run absolution and innervation, which is a little bit different than what I run in most. Most I will run double absolution because the harmonic scavenger is a 1 energy, but in this case, I want to get a little extra bump to my grenade coming back faster. So every time I pick up an orb of power, it reduces my cooldown specifically to my grenade. So all that energy goes to the grenade cooldown. Like I said, you can always switch this over if you're not worried about the scavenger, the ability to get your ammo back for your heavy weapon. You absolutely can put on a stasis weapon surge. It really just depends on how you want to play. So this is how I play, but if it works better for you to put the stasis weapon surge on, by all means, put it on. Last but not least, the class item. Get your bump to your armor, whatever stat category you need. Reaper, shortly after you're using your class ability, next weapon, final blow, spawns an orb of power. You want your orb of power to get your abilities back faster. And then I almost don't even need it for this build, but I still have it on Font of Restoration. That first orb of power you pick up with Font of Restoration boosts your recovery by 30. So once I got that first orb of power picked up, you can see in the lower right hand corner, I will have resilience at T10, recovery at T9, discipline and intellect also at T9, and strength straggling along at the end. But that's why I said this might be my most balanced build that I've put out, because I don't have any others where I can only pick up one Orb of Power and instantly get 3 other stats at 90 or above. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Again, you got to focus your armor. You got to have a little bit of RNG luck, but it is possible. Last but not least, reduce your grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Put the bomber perk on. Again, just one little extra step to get your grenade ability back faster. And again, you get 2 charges. So if you don't see enemies for a while, you might actually get your grenade back faster because if you already have one charged up. So, get that Orb of Power, pick up that Orb of Power, use your class ability. You don't have to spam it, obviously, but just use it. Use all of your abilities at your fingertips. So that's pretty much the build. There's really not too much fanciness with it. The gameplay loop is very straightforward. When you come up to a group of enemies, throw your grenade out. Let the grenade track to said enemies. Shoot your grenade launcher at the enemies, and just continue on from there. I do not recommend throwing out 2 grenades at the same time. You want to let one go and let it work its way through whatever GABA enemies you're at. Now, if you're in an activity like an overthrow or something where you're not seeing enemies all the time, you're going to have to pick and choose your times to throw your grenade out, because chances are 1 or 2 shots from the exotic grenade launcher here might get the enemies that you ordinarily would freeze. You can also run this with other stasis weapons if you want. You can run this with a stasis sword if you want. The Ill Omens, as a stasis heavy weapon. I prefer the rocket launcher because typically, especially in boss rooms, I'm not up in the boss's face unless I'm running Titan, for lack of a better explanation. Unless I'm being a Titan that specific round, I'm typically shooting at the boss from a distance and focusing on ads in general to get my abilities back so I can throw them all at the boss or champs or whoever that might be spawned that might be beefier in front of me. And then as far as the shotgun, you can see I've got another shotgun in here, the Ness's Ablation. Realistically, what you want to try to do, if you're running the heavier content, there's not going to be a surge. If you want that extra bump to surge power, whether it's solar or arc or void or whatever, pretty much those are the only 3, solar, arc, and void, because that's all you can equip in your energy slot. You can switch over, pick a shotgun in each element that you like. If you prefer and you love running stasis, have your shotgun get the bump to the damage, based on the surge of the week. So I think the surge of the week is solar. Put a solar shotgun on here. The reason I'm not worried is because Arcane Embrace it's a 2-shot shotgun. So if the first shot is a little bit lower than normal, the second shot should hopefully make up for it, especially in lower end content. And again, I'm not walking up to the boss and pulling out my shotgun. I am throwing my rocket launcher at the boss. I'm using my Stasis Super on the boss. Same thing with champs. I'm not rolling in and throwing the grenades at the boss. I am, using the grenades to get my ability energy back as fast as possible so that I can take on the harder enemies as it goes on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to go to one of my normal farming spots for like weapon bounties and things. That's going to be on Neomura, the breakneck mission. I'm going to quickly and hopefully efficiently explain to you and show you how the gameplay loop works in a non-stressful environment. In other words, if you die while you're trying to learn how to do this, you don't respawn all the way back or go to orbit or, lose the hope of your fire team. It's just you, so you can kind of just build test. You can also go to Shuro Chi if you get the checkpoint bot to work right for you. You can also go to the EDZ or even Altars of Sorrow on the moon if you prefer. But I like the breakneck mission. You'll see kind of how it works when I do it, but it's a good way to just basically put the training wheels on for a build like this that does kind of require a loop. It's more grenade heavy first than it is weapon heavy with buffs to, your super regen and things like that, most of my builds are known for. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know anyone that loves Stasis and they want to use more of the exotic grenade launcher, but don't quite know how to build around it, please share this video with them. I want to try to help as many people as possible. I do want to take a moment to apologize for my tardiness on getting another video out. I know you guys know it's the Christmas season, so hopefully you guys are having a good build up, and hopefully you guys do have happy holidays. But also I did start a new job, so things have been a little hectic at my home. So I promise to get back to my normal, at least one video a week, possibly two, with different builds and things like that. But I just want to take a moment and just thank everyone for their patience. Before this video came out, things have been a little bit hectic at home for me. So, but yeah, consider liking and subscribing, and share this with someone who likes Stasis or maybe wants to build into a Stasis Warlock. This build is a lot of fun once you get used to the gameplay loop. If you do have any questions, comments, and concerns, you can always comment on any of my videos. I also have my Discord on my main page under the About Me section. If you do have questions about builds, you want me to help you make a build, you want me to check out your build, I do have some folks that do get at me regularly. Hey, how does this look? Hey, what do you think? What can I do to make this better? Or am I trying too hard with this? Should I try something else? I love build crafting to help any player out there. So the more players I can help, hopefully, the more fun that everybody can have. So I'm going to switch it over. Again, I'm going to go to the breakneck mission first. I'm going to show you guys just a very training wheels type of way to use the build. Hopefully I won't mess up too much. But if I do, again, that's what it's for. I don't normally run Stasis. I don't claim to be a Stasis master or anything, but this is a very, very solid build you can take into a lot of activities and be a very big help to maybe some of the more aggressive players. If you are not an aggressive player, this is a great build for you to hone in on and just help everybody on the battlefield. So, and after I get done with the breakneck mission, I'm going to give some highlights on a 10-wave onslaught. I won't bore you with all the details. I'll run through a whole boss room so you can kind of see how it functions. It's going to be quite a bit different than how I normally go in Onslaught, but hopefully you'll kind of get the general idea. Your job is to support your teammates. Freezing enemies helps everybody. It's not you paving the way for your teammates. It's you helping in unison with your teammates. So if you do like to sit back, you do like to support, and if you do want to get up close and personal with the GABA enemies, this is definitely a good build for you. So I'm gonna switch over. I'm gonna quit yapping, but yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think of the training wheels portion of this video, so to speak, for lack of a better way to put it. And then, obviously, if you do have any questions, you can get at me on my Discord. You can comment on the video itself. Like and subscribe. If anything resonated with you, or if you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. So again, thank you guys for your patience. I promise to get back to making regular content. It's just been a little bit hectic in my everyday life. So I will see you guys next time. Take care. So just for the sake of the test, I'm here at the checkpoint in Breakneck. I'm going to throw my stasis grenade out so you can just see kind of how it works. One after another, every frozen target that you shoot spawns those crystals that track to the next target. And you can see I've already got my grenade back. So I'm going to throw it out again. I've also got crystalline converter on. So as you can see, it double hit the champ. Now if we go through here, I'm just going to throw this out in the back so that all the enemies can spawn, just so you can see. See, I got the big guy there, and here we go. You got that chilling fog that's still there. And it's just rinse and repeat, one after the other after the other. And as you're doing this, there is sort of a loop that you do need to follow. However, the important thing to realize is you got to keep moving, okay? And it's not going to be your normal style of run and gun, constantly trying to be the first person to get to this place or that place. Your game style is going to be a complete utility to the rest of the group, no matter what you're doing. So I just respawned. Again, throw the grenade out, let it track, kill the enemies, let the ice track to the next target. You can aim down sights if you want. It really doesn't matter. You know, your goal here is to cycle through your abilities as much as possible. And as you can see right there, I was able to shatter an entire group of enemies. So if you are playing solo, this is where this build is really going to take shape, because if you're in a group activity, you may not be the highest kill count, the highest orbs, or things of that nature. But the idea is that you are incredibly hard to kill, and you do excellent AoE damage to basically everything. And the keynote here is, and you can see it kind of happening on your screen unfolding, is when you shatter these targets, all of these perks that we have selected, all these, you know, both in the seasonal artifact and in the class itself, are going to work one in the same. So I'm just gonna one more time restart the checkpoint so you can see exactly how it goes. Now this is just where I like to build test. It doesn't necessarily have to be where you build test everything. And then just to get a feel for how it's going to go. You're not always going to have all of your abilities in one fell swoop. But as you play, all your abilities are going to come back extremely fast. So just for the sake of this video, I'm only rolling, you can see in the lower left-hand corner, I'm only rolling with one grenade. I'm wasting my melee so you can see how fast everything recharges. So I'm going to trigger the event, throw out your grenade, and let it do its work. And obviously this is a more confined space. If you're playing an Onslaught, you're going to have, you know, a pretty large area of effect that you can be roaming around in. I'm just rolling in the area right now, and you see I just threw out my my melee. It shattered a bunch of targets, and there you go. I just cleared out, I don't know, 30 or 40 enemies just right there in the game, without really having to do anything except float around rocking that grenade launcher. And you can see, obviously I've got frost armor. I throw out my melee, and boom, it's just that easy. You saw the crystal form right there. I've got a grenade charge right there. Now I got my super back. So, I mean, how long have I been going here? It hasn't been that long at all. Well, now the only thing that does kind of stink about this build, and you're going to have to play around with it, you can't just throw the grenade anywhere. It has to be somewhere that you're going to hit enemies. If you're not going to hit enemies, the build won't work. So that's going to be the key here. And obviously, once you get to this guy here, you know, I'm just going to restart and do it all over again. So that's the challenge. Every situation that you find yourself in is going to be different than the next. The concept is still the same. lob the grenade somewhere where enemies are, and then let it do its thing first, and then you can start with the grenade launcher.